in the text boxes that we're working with. When you're finished, it should look something close to or exactly like this. Let me make a new document, show you a common problem that tends to come up. If I'm wanting to format text, last time we created a page that had our yearbook pictures in it, and I put the people's names and classes onto the side. If I wanted to, I can quickly do formatting of text as well, and I can do this using our paragraph styles. Let's type in some so I'd have like a name and then their class, and then a name and then a class, and then a name and then a class, and then do one more, name and class. If I've typed everything out, especially if I typed out specific names and specific classes, let's say I wanted everybody's name to be in a certain format or a certain font and a certain size. I'll just kind of choose something semi-random. So we'll make that bold, we'll make that really large and all caps. Oh, and let's even put it, I'll keep it black for now. But we want the class that they're in to be as a serif type, or maybe a italicized type. Hate picking fonts. Marian, and we'll make it italic, and we'll make it a little bit smaller. So if I had to go through and type out everything and then format it over and over again, that would take me a very long time, because then I have to go through and reselect the font and then change the size and do this. Using what are called your paragraph styles lets you quickly and easily format and edit your text. Now the book is going to show you how to apply all of your paragraph styles, but I want to go into actually making and using some of the paragraph styles that you have. Once you've got your text styled the way you want it to be, open up your paragraph styles. So I'm going to go to Window, down to our styles. There's our paragraph. Pull it over here so we can see it. By default, everything is just a basic paragraph style, and whenever you change that paragraph, it'll add a little plus sign, meaning that's added to or changed up. But if I wanted to save this styling, this font, this size, this uppercase, whatever I've done to it, I can highlight my text and create a new one down at the bottom of the style. By default, it's going to call it Style 1, but if I double click on it, come on, there we go. I can open up the options for this style. First off, I'm going to give it a name, so we'll call it Student Name. As I click through on the side, you can see all the different formattings and things that I can change up with it. So there are the basic characters, here's the font that it is and the size that it is. I can change up its indentations, the spacing, if it's got hyphenations, more things than usually most people change up, but it's all part of what makes up its style here. Let's do the same thing for the class that it is. Highlight your text, we'll make a new one, and we'll rename it Class, and say OK to that. Here's the fun part. If I was to go in now, all I've got to do is to highlight the text that I want, and as long as it's in the same paragraph, I can click once under student name, and it automatically formats it to be that. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So click on the name. I don't even have to highlight it, just placing my cursor within there. Clicking on name, and I can actually click class and choose class. Choose class, name, and class. So very, very quickly, very easily, I can go through and format the text that I've already created. The best part about using a paragraph style, if my art editor comes to me and says, hey, I don't like the color that you use there, I want you to change up something for all of the names on here. Rather than going through every single name and changing the color, I can change the paragraph style that's here. If I open up the student name, one of the options is, say, the character color. I want them all to be this magenta. And I say OK. Even if I turn on preview, you can see what it would look like. Everything that I've applied that style to is automatically already there. If I want to add a little more space after the class that they're in, I can open up this one. And then I believe one of the indents and spacing, I can do some space after it and increase a little bit of space before that. And if I keep on typing, hit return, type the next thing, change that to the student name, and I can quickly and easily apply that one. Pretty cool? For this one, when you load the text into here, What it's doing is Microsoft Word already has some styles defined within it. And so when you load this text in, it's going to ask you to import those styles. You can see all the styles applied here. So when you click on the headline text, there's the main head has its own style up there. If you have the body copy, here's body copy, or at least the first one that has no drop cap. If I was to click on it, I can actually quickly add the drop cap to there. But it all depends on where your insertion point. If I was to carefully click right there, you don't have to have it highlighted, you just have to have your cursor inside of that area. You can quickly, easily change that up. The second thing deals with the little discoveries thing down at the bottom. This one's a pet peeve that I get onto my own graphic designers with. So for this particular text, everything is inside of a text box, but it's not nicely and neatly centered up inside of it. They've moved the text around and they formatted it very specifically. So I want to step through and show you a couple of things that they've done. We're going to start off with a blank text box. We'll make it larger than is necessary. Command D, and we'll drop in the, I believe, scientific discovery. Apollo Science, there it is. Say open. As with the other ones, I can highlight my text. Pull back open my styles, and I can apply that headline style and then make it a little bit smaller as necessary. Or I can highlight this text, and I believe it was the sidebar copy. There we go. That's what they used from that. So quickly and easily I was able to edit that text. If I want to change the color of my text box, I can select it up at the top, use that same red that's there. By default, whenever you choose the color, it's at 100%. InDesign lets you do what's called a screen or a lighter tint of a specific color up here at the very top. And I can bring that down so it's still the same thing. Actually, if I was to send it to the printer, they wouldn't have to change up inks. They can use the same ink and just do a lighter screen of it with that way. The pet peeve that I always rail against is having text go right to the edge of a box that it's in, the container that it's in. You always want to give your text just a little bit of a margin, a little bit of a space around the edge. It's kind of an easy way of cleaning it up, makes it breathe a little bit easier visually. To do this, we need to do what's called text inset. I want to inset the text and add a little inside margin inside of my box. To do these kinds of changes, we find it under the object, the text frame options. Will give us options for the frame that we have selected. I always turn on preview, so any changes I make, I can see it generated. And here's our inset spacing. By default, it's linked up, so if I was to increase it, if you look very carefully, you can see a faint outline going around it, and you can see it pushes it away from the edge of my box. If I was to say, okay, no matter what size I make my box, it'll always have that little bit of inset inside of it. The other thing, talking about the size of my box, since it's larger than is necessary, I can tell InDesign to automatically adjust it to fit the content that I have. Let's open back up our text frame options. To automatically adjust the size of it, we'll go to auto size. By default, it's turned off, but you can have it automatically adjust the height and width, depending on what you have. Let's do the height only. And so automatically you see it jumps to whatever height that I have here. If I say OK, even if I try to change the height of it now, it's automatically going to resize and rechange. I can adjust the width. So if I brought it in, it automatically adjusts the height and places it that way. So this makes it very easy, very quickly to make the correct size text box that we need to place our content in. Here's the final thing I'll show you about generating the text within here. The type that we use, the default original text, already had numbers placed in it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. What I would like to tell it to do is to generate the numbers for me. If I wanted to add on to this list, I just want to be able to add 7, 8, and 9 without having to type it in. Plus, I can do some formatting that goes along with this. I'm going to select my text. We'll open up, instead of our paragraph styles, let's open up our paragraph options. This is found under Type. There's Paragraph. Do be careful. There's Paragraph Styles and Paragraph itself. This lets me adjust the paragraph formatting that's there. I'll close this out so we don't get confused. But under the paragraph, you've got more options at the top right. And one of them is to add bullets and numbering. So if I wanted to make an ordered list, either a bulleted list or a numbered list, this lets me select it out. You can tell what kind of list it is. In this case, we want it to be a numbered list. And I'll turn on preview so we can see what it looks like. With preview turned on, it's still going to keep the original numbers that I have. I'm going to have to go back and erase those away eventually. But with the numbered list, the main thing that we're going to play around with is the indentation and alignment of the first line. By default, the left indent pushes everything over a specific amount. So if my left indent, if I increase that, everything is pushed over all at once. First line and every line below it. The first line indent will only move the first line of a paragraph that we have. So notice that the numbers will only move, but my rest of my remainder will stay the same. The book is going to ask you to create what's called a hanging indent. Let's set these back to 0. For this one, a hanging indent is when you have your number by itself and then every line below it has a little space and it's all lined up neatly along the edge. Very easy to see. You can see it working right here. So I've got my number and then everything else is evenly aligned away from it. To do this, kind of do a little acrobatics with the first line and the left indent. Let's see, if you increase the first line, I think we'll do 0.125. So that pushes everything over. But if I bring back my first line a negative 0.125, it'll pull everything else back and keep everything else aligned at 1/8 of an inch right there. And say OK. Now all I have to do is get rid of the unnecessary numbers that are there and let those line themselves up with that. Very easy, but it makes it look a whole lot better than what we had before. This way, if I hit return and I start typing, automatically it generates a 7 or an 8 and does the formatting that I need necessary. On the second page is where we have a customized bullet point list. Let's highlight that. If I was to open up my bullet point options, you can see bullets is selected. Usually when you think of a bullet point, you think of it as just a dark round circle. You can choose that, but in this case they changed it over to a star. You can choose the character that you want. So there could be even a double chevron. If you wanted to add your own character or make it to be any other character that's part of a font group, you can click Add and then scroll through and pick whatever character that's on there. So let's make the copyright symbol to be one. If I say Add to that, we'll say OK. Now it's part of the list and I can make the copyright symbol be part of the bullets from that. The main thing is, the bullets and numbering, you've got options. You have full control over the way it is. You don't have to be stuck with the default that the computer gives you. Here's the final thing that I'll show you on this formatting of the table that we have down here. Tables tend to be a little bit tricky simply because there's so much information you have to juggle, but I'm going to keep it real simple. Everything has to be in its own frame or its own container. Tables reside in a text frame. So we're going to use our text tool to do the formatting that works with it. If you try to select it with a regular selection tool or any other tool, it's not going to work. Make sure you got your text tool. Make a text frame and we'll drop in the contacts Excel spreadsheet that they had. Real simple one. Let's see if it'll generate a preview. We don't need it. We'll open it. Uh-oh. Let's try that again. Let's drop it in. Import it as a sheet. There we go. Now we got the original placed into this. Oh. Jumped over. Looking at this, there's a lot of things that you can do with it. Let's pull it over here so I can hit my preview. You can see, first of all, everything has a nice dark outline around it. If I was to highlight the text, I can use it like that. If I kept on highlighting, it would get either the cell or the row or the column that I have. So it's like working with any other spreadsheet. If you want to quickly select a row or a column, move your mouse just outside of it. You can highlight that row, or if you do the edge, you can highlight everything to work with that. In order to get rid of the frame outline around it, I'm going to select everything. With it selected, here's all of our options that we can work with at the top. The outline depends on what's selected inside of this white box. I've cleared everything away or kept everything cleared. Right now, just the outline here is selected. Watch what happens if I was to set my stroke to be none. What went away? Just the outside edge. None of the inside edge was selected. The reason why is because up here, I had none of my inside crossbars selected as well. That's one thing that trips people up. They say, I had it selected. Well, you didn't have it selected up here to make the effect. Now with everything selected, if I was to choose none, even the inside areas are selected from there. The other thing to do, let's put it back just so we can see what we're working with, is if you want to combine information together and change up the size of the text box that you have. If I was looking at this, James is the director, Wendy is the assistant director, Mark. What I really want to do is to combine both of those cells together. To do this, at the very top, here's our merge and unmerge options. Merging cells will simply connect the information together. Once it's there, it treats it as one cell, and I can even change up things like the alignments. Do I want it to be aligned at the top, centered, or bottom? And that's where these other options come in as well. As far as changing the color, you can select all of the cells from there and change the fill color like you would any normal box that you're working with. Oop, we'll bring down the tint of that. There you see from that. The book will go into more detail about specifically how you want to format and place those texts in there. You can even apply your paragraph styles to that. For changing up the size of it, here's another thing. I'm going to use my type tool. When you click on the edges of it, it'll only affect the cell that's immediately to the left of the edge you're clicking on. So if I was to click on this one, it adjusts that cell width. But if I click on this one, it's going to keep everything to the right the same size, but it's going to keep this one lined up that way. There is a options box you can open up, Window, Types and Tables. There's our table options. And this will give you full formatting of the entire table, the cells, or the table styles that can be applied to it as well. Final thing to know about working with tables, and this is going to be a problem most people run into. It needs to fit within your text box that you're working in. If your text box is too small, in this case, if I was to make it larger, that's okay. But if I made it too small, I lose the table that I'm working in. Very often people will copy and paste their text or their table into their new text box and it's not showing up. The reason why it's not showing up is usually because it's slightly too small. Even if you have to make your text box a little bit bigger than is necessary, that's okay. It'll fit and stay in there and print off normally. Here's the last thing that you need to know is how to turn in this particular file. This is very important. You actually may want to take notes on doing this. To turn it in, I'm going to require you to create what's called a package file. The book will step you through this. If I was to send this document to a printer or to start working on a new computer that doesn't have the same fonts or doesn't have all the pictures that I have, what I want to do is to collect all of my fonts, all of my colors, all of the pictures into one solid folder, one packaged folder. Here's how to do that in InDesign. Under File, first of all, if you do need to save it, so we saved it. File, go down to Package, and it's going to step you through this process. Here's what it's going to be collecting. All the fonts, any linked images, any colors and print settings, things that are necessary to be able to print this up. We'll hit Package, and the first thing it's going to ask you to do is to give your contact information. Do put your name in there. You don't have to worry about address and phone number, but at least your name needs to be part of the printing instructions. Do Continue. It's going to ask you, where do you want to save this folder? I'm going to do it to the desktop. And you can see all the things that it's going to save a copy of. It'll even save a PDF version and an older version of InDesign in case you're sending it to somebody who doesn't have the same version as you. But when we do Package, there will be one final warning. This is a font warning. One thing to know is fonts, just like photographs and drawings and music and anything else that you download, are created and they're have a copyright license to them. If you're going to use a font, make sure you have the ability to copy it and redistribute it and reuse it. For all these projects, you should be okay to do that. But if you're using them, make sure you pay for your fonts or at least get them from a credible website. But that's what that's telling you about from there. Say okay? And yeah, we'll say okay to that too. Give it just a second to package everything together. It's looking for all the pictures, making copies of them, and placing it on our desktop. And it may ask something about publishing. We don't have to worry about that. Here's what we got. On my desktop, there should be a new folder called, there it is, Newsletter July folder. If I open it up, here's all of my fonts that I have. If I send it to a new computer, they can quickly and easily find the fonts and install them. Here's all of the links, all the photos and things that I use. And here's a variety of different formats that could be printed or easily used. To submit this on Moodle, Moodle will not accept you dragging or uploading just a folder to Moodle. You have to do what's called a compressed or a zipped folder. Here's how to make a zipped folder. Here's where you may want to take notes. To make a zip folder, hold down the Control key and click on your folder. One of the options is to choose compress, then the name of the folder. Give it a second. And this is going to generate, where is it? Where is it? There it is, down here at the bottom. This is going to generate this zipped file. This compressed folder is what you can send through the internet. If you need to attach it to an email, or in this case, we're going to upload it to Moodle, this zipped folder is what you would send to Moodle when you turn it in. If you try to do the folder, it's going to either give you an error or nothing's going to be uploaded, and I'm going to look at it and say, well, they didn't finish this project, it'll be automatic 0. This has happened every year. Do not try to upload the folder or individual files. Just one zipped folder is all that I need. All right. Other than that, that should be able to get you through the end of this project for next week. Any quick questions or issues that have come up? All right, I'll turn your computer back over to y'all and let y'all continue working through this.